Hi, my name is Frederick, co-founder of ComplianceGate here in Hong Kong. In this video, I will introduce you to the wonders of CPSIA lab testing. And well, if you plan to import children's products into the United States, then yeah, you really need to know how these things work. So when importing children's products to the US, and that's pretty much anything that's sold or marketed as suitable for children 12 years or younger, so the entire age group, okay, then third-party lab testing is mandatory. And most of you already understand this, but there's still a lot of confusion that can cost you a fortune if you don't get this right, okay? Now, number one, CPSIA itself is a regulation, it's a framework, it's not a safety standard, okay? Instead, what CPSIA does is that basically tells you as an importer that it's up to you to figure out which ASTM and CPSIA standards apply to your product and then get it tested accordingly, okay? So it's not a CPSIA standard that itself sets limits when it comes to physical properties or chemicals and so on, okay? Now, the good thing is that as an importer, you don't need to know exactly which standards apply to your product. Instead, you can reach out to a testing company like CIMA or Bureau Veritas or SGS. As long as they are an accepted CPSC testing company, then they can, based on a product photo, product description, material description, they can then give you a quotation, and that quotation is always a breakdown of the regulations or the standards that they believe apply to your product. Now, they don't guarantee that they get it 100% right, but it's a hell of a lot better than trying to work that out on your own, or worse, ask your supplier, which you should never ever do when it comes to these matters. So that's an easy way to get a list of standards that apply to your product. So all you need to tell these testing companies is that, hey, I'm planning to import children's products to the US. I need it to be CPSIA compliant and therefore tested, and they know what to do, okay? So not that difficult in practice. Now, the thing with CPSIA testing is that you need to get every single color variation of your product tested, okay? So imagine that I have this cup and I'm importing this cup in 5 different colors. I need to get every single version, well, every color variation CPSIA lab tested. So it's not just enough to get, say, the blue one here tested. I need all 5 of them, okay? In addition, it also has to be batch testing, okay? So I can't place an order for these cups and use a test report that was issued 3 years ago for a black cup. Okay, it's not the same cup, even if it's the blue cup. Okay, it's not the same cup, because my cup is made now today. Okay, and the other blue cup, it was made 3 years ago. Like, obviously it's not the same cup, okay? Just because it's the same product listing on Alibaba or in the it has the same SKU in the supplier's catalog or whatever, or even if it's sold on Amazon already, that's an argument I hear quite a lot, doesn't mean that you can use an existing test report. Batch testing is mandatory. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to get every single batch tested, but the first one definitely has to be lab tested, okay? That's mandatory. All right, you can't use a test report from your supplier, okay? And you need testing for all products, okay? But not necessarily each time you place the order. So yeah, these are some of the intrinsic details that can be quite difficult, okay? Now, another question I get a lot, do you need to get the testing done in the US? Not necessarily. What matters is that the CPSC, that the testing company that performs the lab test is approved by the CPSC. This improves all the big ones, the big European ones like SGS, Bureau Veritas, Intertek, TUV, and also CIMA, which is headquartered here in Hong Kong. Okay, so all you need to do to find out if your testing company, if it's not on the list I just mentioned, then you can just Google CPSC accepted testing companies, and you find this list free of charge on their website. So, but that's not like a good thing to have. Like that's the test report has to be issued by an accepted testing company, because otherwise the test report is invalid. It's useless. It's just a waste of money. Okay. So don't let your supplier book it for you. That's something I've seen quite a lot. Like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to let my supplier do it. And then you get a test report from some random company in Shenzhen that's not on the list. And of course, they're probably way cheaper. Can't really be sure if there was any test to begin with, which is why, of course, the CPSC don't accept any testing company. Okay. And if the CPC doesn't accept any testing company, that means Amazon doesn't accept a testing company either. So yeah, it has to come from the right one, and that's not necessarily the cheapest one. Okay. So what does it mean to get it lab tested? Number one, get a quotation. Okay. That way you find out that your product, which ASTM and CPSIA standards that apply to your product, okay? Be it regulations or standards that cover physical properties such as sharp, edges or loose parts like buttons or something like that, flammability, fire safety, chemicals, heavy metals. So there's more than one aspect to it. But let the testing company decide for you. They're way more qualified, okay? And then you also get a quotation. But make sure you inform the testing company about every single variation of your product. And this lab test should take place before shipment, okay? So by the time that the products are before shipment, before balance payment, that's when you should get product lab tested. All right. So if you want to learn more about compliance testing, CPSIA testing, then you can keep reading the article. If you're on our website right now, if you're coming in from YouTube, then you can just click on the link in the description, and you can find an article with some of the most common questions. And of course, you can also reach out. You can write a question right here on YouTube, or if you're on the website, just use the comment section, and I'll do my best to get back to you in a couple of days. Thank you for watching the video.